What's up, everybody? It's your boy aka Big Zeke, coming at y'all with another weekly inspirational thought. But before we get started, um, last week I got tied up with a few things, doctor's appointments and things like that. I do apologize because normally I try to put messages out there to let it be known that content won't be coming out. So, for those who were expecting to see a video last week, I do apologize. With that being said, we're going to jump right into this week's thought. I am going to say that this may be a longer video than normal, so I just like to give people who want a heads up before that, but we'll see where it goes, okay? Hope you and your families have been doing well. Appreciate y'all for all the love and support. Here we go. The thought that God gave me for this week is called, What is your foundation built on? What is your foundation built on? Bear with me because we got quite a few reference scriptures. The first is coming from Psalms 11, verse 3. I'm going to read all the NIV versions, but as usual, all of the scriptures and information will be in the comment section below, okay? So, Psalms chapter 11, verse 3 reads, If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? That was, oh, I read the King James, but that was Psalm 111, verse 3. Romans 12, chapter 2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Joshua chapter 24, verse 15 reads, But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Matthew 6 and 21. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. And finally, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 1. A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. Okay. Thank you all for bearing with me. So we're talking about what is your foundation based on? What is your foundation? And so our foundation, what is your foundation built on? Our foundation is basically what we're built on. You know, foundation of a good building means the ground that it's built on. So when we ask that question, what is your foundation? What is the life you live built on? What are your values built on? What are your thought patterns built on? What is your moral compass built on? What are all of these things built on? What do you have them rooted in? You know, some people have their foundation built on being successful. Some have it built on being rich. Some have it built on being beautiful. Some have it built on, you know, have it built in just certain specialties. You know, some have it built just firmly in the certain belief systems. Some have it built on being content. Various different things that people have their foundations built on, and my personal belief is that the best foundation you can have is having your foundation rooted in God. Because when God is your foundation, when God is our foundation, everything we need is going to be supplied and provided for. But if we place our foundation in temporary things that won't last, things like money, cars, food, clothes, whatever, that stuff goes. That stuff comes and goes. But when you place your foundation in an everlasting source like God, that's major because God isn't going to change. He isn't going to leave you. He's not going to forsake you. He's there. And everything you need in the process is also going to be provided for. So, God bless me with a few thoughts. Now, these are lengthy reads for these thoughts, but this is what God gave me, so bear with me. But the first one reads as follows. Each and every one of us has a foundation. What our foundation is built on is completely up to us. So we should choose wisely what we allow our foundation to be built on, because having our lives built on the wrong foundation or weak foundations, such as temporary things, ungodly things, like I just mentioned, can lead us down some dark, even ruinous paths that can lead to our downfall. If we allow ourselves to have the wrong foundation, it is almost impossible to lead a positive life the way that God desires for us to have. How do I know this? Psalms chapter 11 verse 3 said, when the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do? If you got a weak foundation that can be destroyed, something temporary that can be destroyed, like if you got your foundation built on having nice cars and houses, those things could go away. So as soon as those are taken away, if that's what your foundation as a person is built on, all of a sudden you're lost because you don't know what to do without those nice cars and nice houses. So what can you do if your foundation is being destroyed? That's why it's important to have a good solid foundation. And Romans 12:2 said, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Again, God's will and desire for us is to follow him, and he provide everything that we need. So when we try to do things on our own and we try to place our faith in things that are temporary, we are not following God's will. And when we're not following God's will, that's not a good foundation. That's an unstable foundation. Like the example I just gave a moment ago, if you place your foundation in having nice cars and big houses, but once that stuff is taken away, you lose yourself. But if you place your foundation in something as strong as God, because there's nothing stronger than God or even close to being as strong as God, you place your foundation in God, not only are you on strong ground when storms of life come, but everything you need in the process will be provided for. So it's important to make sure that we are choosing the right foundations and making sure that our lives and our morals and our thoughts and the way we act and the way we think is built on a right foundation. See, the world will tell us, oh, well, if you ain't got this, and y'all have heard me say this in other videos, if you ain't got this, if you ain't got that, if you don't look like this, you don't look like that, then you won't be this, you won't be that. That's all part of having a solid foundation, because when you have a solid foundation, you know that statements like that and thoughts and views like that don't matter. When you have a solid foundation, you don't care about what you have or what you don't have. When you got your foundation rooted in God, guess what? You're not worried about what you don't have, because you already know that whatever you need, God is going to supply it. So you're not worried about what the world thinks or what they think you should have. You're worried about pleasing God. Next thought. A major part of having the right foundation in our lives is choosing to serve God. Just talked about that. And obeying his will for our lives. When we choose to serve God and allow him to be our foundation, any and everything that we want and need, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, etc., will be taken care of. Just said that. Because God wants the very best for us. By allowing God to be our foundation, we're not worried about the cares of this world, because we know who our source is and who to go to in times of trouble, so that we are able to withstand all the trials, tribulations of this world. I literally just said that a few seconds ago. And the funny thing is, I wasn't even reading that thought, but that's where God, confirmation. Okay. How do I know that though? Okay. Got a couple reference scriptures for that. The first, Joshua 24:15. It said, but if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. Whether it's the gods of your ancestors and beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua made a choice. When you choose to serve God, You're following God's will, and when you follow God's will, everything you need will be taken care of. And when the storms of life, and when the devil and all these things come up against you, you ain't gotta worry because God got you covered. The next one, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. God only wants the best for us. So why not have our foundation rooted in Him when He wants only what's best for us? He doesn't want harm for us. He doesn't want us to suffer. He doesn't want us struggling. He wants to bless us. But see, we get in our own way because our foundations ain't strong enough because we got our foundations planted in things that are temporary. We got our foundations rooted in, and I'm saying we as a whole, this world today, we have our foundations rooted and planted in the creations rather than placing our foundation in our creator, who is God. These things I have spoken to you. This is John chapter 16, verse 33. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Why is that important? Think about it. Again, if your foundation is rooted in God, then whenever trials and tribulations, and we're going to have those, as John 16:33 said, anytime something rises up against you, God's got you covered. Isn't that a beautiful thing? When you have not only a solid foundation, but you got protection and you got everything provided. You can't tell me that there's another foundation you can root yourself in that has you covered all the way around like God does. There's not one you can name. Money can't do what God can do. Cars and houses can't do what God can do. People can't do what God can do. Institutions can't do what God can do. Food can't do what God can do. Clothes can't do what God can do. Nothing. Status can't do what God can do. Fame can't do what God can do. Nothing can do what God can do. So for me, I'm rooting my foundation in God because nothing or no one can do what God can do. Nothing or nobody can be my foundation and supply everything I need and keep me covered from all of the tribulations and trials. And it's so much more that God does than that, but that we're just covering that just for this lesson. You know what I mean? Gotta have the right foundation. Next thought. Another part of having a good foundation, and actually this is the last thought that God gave me. Another part of having a good foundation is making sure that our heart is in the right place. If your hearts are more focused on material things, we've been talking about that money, status, clothes, jewelry, earthly wealth, etc., instead of being focused on things like our good name, our character, how we operate, who we are in God, how we are on the inside, then we are ultimately setting ourselves up for failure. Because once those material things go away, we'll fall. I said that earlier. With that being said, it is better for us to have a foundation built on godly, kingdom, eternal things, values, rather than earthly, temporary things and values. How do I know this? Matthew 6:21 said, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So if your treasure, your foundation is built on God, your heart is going to be there with God. Okay? The next one, Proverbs 22:21 said a good name, 22:1. I'm sorry, Proverbs 22:1. I read that too fast. A good name is more desirable than great riches, to be esteemed better than silver or gold. Again, there's a choice to be made. If you choose to have your foundation in temporary things like silver and gold, then once that goes away, ultimately you're going to go away. Because what are you going to do without your foundation? You're ultimately going to fall. And I'll break down the example after this. Matthew 6:19-20. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. And then that 1 Timothy 6:17-19. Command those who are rich in this present world to be arrogant, to not, excuse me, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. Now, we talking about foundation, right? I said earlier, you heard the thought. If we place our foundations in earthly things, once those things are gone, and not just earthly, temporary things. Once we place our foundation in temporary things, once those things are gone, we'll fall. Right? Think about a house. If you put a house on a strong foundation like concrete, that house ain't gonna really fall because it's on something concrete, it's on something solid. But if you place your house on a raft in the middle of the ocean and you build a house on there, when them waves get to moving and that raft slips off and underneath that house is gonna do what? It's gonna sink, it's gonna fall. Think about temporary things as that raft on the water. When it gets moved, you're going to fall. Now, think of that concrete foundation as God. Putting our foundation in God. So that no matter what beats against it, no matter what storms hit it, it's going to be solid. And you're going to be in a sturdy place, a solid place. When you place your treasure and your foundation on earthly things, not just earthly things, temporary things, things that ain't going to last, and those things go away, and they will go away. May not go away today, may not go away tomorrow, but they will eventually go away. You will lose who you are. But when you have a solid foundation in God, no matter how much comes against you, God won't let you lose who you are, because who you are is identified through Him and by Him. So, if you take away anything from this video, take this away. Plant your foundation in God. Because if you plant your foundation in God, I guarantee you, this is not something I read. This is something I know for myself. I guarantee you, every need will be met. Every situation will be handled if you allow God to do that. And you ain't got to worry about nothing. Everything you need will be provided for. But it's up to you to choose what your foundation is built on. That's all I got for this week. I thank y'all. I appreciate y'all for bearing with me to the end of this video. I love y'all. Take care of each other. Love on one another. Remember to keep your foundation built in God and not temporary things. Because if you build it in God, you won't have to worry about a thing. God's got you covered. And as always, be inspired.